Most people believe fat loss is slow, painful, and almost impossible without extreme dieting. But deep inside your body, a quiet process begins much sooner than most people expect. After your last bite of food, a hidden countdown starts. Hormones shift, energy sources change, and fat, the same fat stored around your belly, slowly becomes fuel. This is not a trend. This is not motivation talk. This is biology. And the timing of this process may shock you. Research shows that your body does not wait days to burn fat. In fact, the switch can begin far earlier, sometimes within the same day. The problem is, almost nobody explains when this switch truly happens, or how long fasting actually needs to be to make fat loss real. Many people fast too little and see nothing. Others fast too long and burn out. The truth lives in the middle, and it is far more powerful than extreme rules or internet myths. Here is the surprising part. Your body is always choosing between two fuels, sugar or fat. When you eat often, sugar wins, insulin stays high, fat stays locked away. But when food stops coming in, insulin drops. And once insulin drops enough, fat finally gets permission to leave storage. This moment is not random. It follows a clear timeline, yet most people guess instead of understanding it. Some think 8 hours is enough. Others push themselves to 24 hours or more, believing longer is always better. Both sides miss something important. Fat burning does not turn on like a light switch. It rises in stages, and knowing those stages can save you months of frustration. In this video, you will learn exactly what happens inside your body hour by hour after you stop eating. You will learn when sugar runs out, when fat starts to rise, and when fasting stops giving extra benefits. You will also learn why belly fat behaves differently from other fat and why it often refuses to leave until insulin stays low for long enough. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of weight loss. People blame calories. They blame willpower. They blame age. But hormones decide far more than most people realize. And fasting is one of the strongest tools to control those hormones when done correctly. There is also a detail most videos skip. Fat burning can start, but that does not mean fat loss is guaranteed. Your body can burn fat and still store fat later the same day. Timing matters. Food choices matter. And the length of the fast matters more than the struggle. You will learn why short fasts work for some people and fail for others. You will learn why longer fasts are not magic, and you will learn how to choose a fasting window that actually fits real life, not just theory. Stay until the end of this video because the final part explains the biggest mistake people make when fasting for fat loss. This single mistake cancels results even when everything else looks right. Fixing it can change everything. No extreme rules, no starvation, just understanding how the body truly works. If fat loss has felt confusing or unfair, this video will connect the dots in a way that finally makes sense. Welcome to our channel where we break down health, fasting, and fat loss in a simple and honest way. If you want clear explanations without hype, subscribe now and stay with us. Let's begin. When you stop eating, your body does not panic. It does not slow down. It simply changes strategy. Right after a meal, your body is in what is called the fed state. Food is coming in, so energy is easy. Carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, which enters the blood. Insulin rises to move that glucose into your cells. Muscles use it. The brain uses it. Any extra glucose that is not needed right away is stored, mostly in the liver and muscles, in a form called glycogen. At this stage, fat stays stored. There is no reason for the body to touch it. Energy is already available. As time passes and no more food arrives, this situation slowly changes. Insulin begins to fall. Blood sugar stays stable because the liver releases glycogen to keep the brain fueled. This phase is calm and controlled. Nothing dramatic happens yet, but the direction has shifted. Your body is no longer running on incoming fuel. It is now living on what it saved earlier. Several hours later, digestion is mostly complete. The stomach is empty. The intestines are quiet. The body now relies heavily on stored glycogen. This stored sugar is limited. The liver can only hold enough glycogen to power the body for a short time. As these stores begin to drop, insulin continues to fall. This is important because insulin is the hormone that blocks fat burning. As long as insulin is high, fat remains locked away. As insulin drops, the lock starts to loosen. At first, the body still prefers sugar. It squeezes every last bit of glycogen it can find, but the signal is clear. Food is not coming. Energy must come from inside the body now. This is where the shift begins. The body starts preparing to use fat. Around 8 to 12 hours without food, the transition becomes clearer. Digestion is finished. Liver glycogen is running low. Muscle glycogen is still there, but muscles keep it mostly for themselves. The brain needs a steady supply of energy, so the liver must find another solution. This is when fat tissue starts to play a bigger role. Fat cells release fatty acids into the bloodstream. These fatty acids can be used by muscles and other organs for fuel. At the same time, the liver begins converting some of these fatty acids into ketones. Ketones are an alternative fuel, especially important for the brain. This does not mean the body is fully in fat-burning mode yet, but fat is no longer ignored. It has entered the conversation. Between 12 and 16 hours, the internal environment changes more noticeably. Insulin is now quite low. This low insulin level sends a strong message to fat cells: release stored fat. Fatty acids flow more freely into the blood. Ketone production increases. The body becomes more comfortable using fat as a main fuel source. This is the range where many people begin to feel a difference. Hunger may rise and fall in waves. Mental clarity may improve for some. Energy feels more stable for others. From a biological point of view, this is a key window. The body has moved beyond stored sugar and is now actively burning fat to meet its energy needs. This is why many studies focus on this time range. It represents a practical balance. Long enough to trigger fat burning, short enough to be sustainable for many people. As fasting continues towards 16 and then 24 hours, fat burning increases further. Glycogen stores are very low. Insulin remains suppressed. Fatty acids and ketones become major fuel sources. The body is now deeply adapted to using fat. However, this does not mean results double or triple with extra hours. The biggest hormonal shift has already happened earlier. Extending the fast can bring additional benefits for some people, but it also increases difficulty. Hunger can intensify. Stress hormones may rise. For many people, longer fasts become harder to repeat consistently, and consistency matters more than pushing extremes. This is why longer fasts are not necessary for most people trying to lose fat. The body does not need starvation to access fat. It needs time without insulin spikes. This leads to an important and often misunderstood point. Fat burning does not require suffering. It requires allowing insulin to stay low long enough for fat to be released and used. For most people, this happens somewhere between 12 and 16 hours. Beyond that, fat burning continues, but the rate of return slows. The body is already doing the work. Adding more hours does not always add more benefit. In some cases, it can even backfire if it leads to overeating later or stress that disrupts hormones. This understanding is why different fasting methods exist. A 12-hour fast is often the easiest place to start. Dinner ends in the evening. Breakfast comes in the morning. For many people, this simply means stopping late-night snacking. This short fast already lowers insulin overnight and gives the body a break from constant digestion. While fat burning is modest at this stage, it builds the habit of not eating all the time. For beginners, this alone can lead to small but meaningful changes. The 16-8 method takes things further. Eating is limited to an 8-hour window, often from late morning to evening. The remaining 16 hours are spent fasting. This method naturally places most people into the fat burning window discussed earlier. Insulin stays low for longer. Fat has more time to be released and used. This is one reason why this approach is so popular. It fits into daily life. It does not require special foods, and it aligns well with the body's natural rhythms. More extreme approaches like alternate day fasting or full 24-hour fasts push the body deeper into fat adaptation. On fasting days, insulin stays low for a long time. Fat burning is strong. However, these methods are harder to maintain. Hunger can be intense. Social life can suffer. Some people compensate by overeating on non-fasting days. For certain individuals, these approaches work well. For many others, they are not sustainable, and sustainability is critical. This brings the discussion back to real life. Fasting is not magic. It does not cancel poor food choices. It does not override constant overeating. What fasting does well is create structure. It limits eating opportunities. It lowers insulin for extended periods. This combination often leads people to eat fewer calories without counting them. That is where much of the benefit comes from. Not from fasting itself, but from how fasting changes behavior and hormones together. Calories still matter. The body still follows energy balance. Fasting simply makes it easier for many people to stay in a calorie deficit without feeling deprived all day. When fasting is paired with whole foods, adequate protein, and reasonable portions, fat loss becomes more likely. When fasting is paired with overeating, liquid calories, or constant snacking during the eating window, results fade quickly. The most important takeaway is not the exact number of hours. It is understanding the process. The body moves from sugar burning to fat burning in stages. Insulin controls the switch. Time without food allows that switch to flip. Once flipped, fat becomes available as fuel. The goal is not to push the body to extremes, but to give it enough uninterrupted time to do what it is designed to do. Consistent habits, repeated day after day, create results. The clock helps, but behavior decides everything. As understanding of fasting has grown, many health experts have reached a similar position after years of observation, clinical work, and research. They no longer argue about whether fasting can work. The discussion now focuses on how much is enough and where benefits truly begin. A 12-hour fast is often described as a gentle entry point. It gives the body a clear break from constant eating without placing stress on the system. Insulin has time to fall. Digestion fully ends. The body begins dipping into stored energy instead of relying only on incoming food. For many people, this small shift already improves blood sugar control and reduces unnecessary snacking. Experts see this as a foundation rather than a finish line. It prepares the body and the mind for longer fasting windows without shock or resistance. As fasting extends towards 16 hours, experts notice stronger metabolic effects. Insulin remains low for a longer stretch. Fat cells receive a clearer signal to release stored energy. The liver increases fat processing and ketone production. Muscles become more efficient at using fatty acids. This window is often described as the point where fasting stops being passive and becomes active. The body is no longer just resting from food. It is adapting. This adaptation is why many professionals recommend the 16-hour range for people whose goal is fat loss or metabolic improvement. It balances effectiveness with practicality. It is long enough to trigger meaningful fat use but short enough to repeat daily without excessive strain. When fasting goes beyond this range, experts acknowledge that deeper processes can occur. Fat burning continues. Ketone levels rise further. Some cellular repair mechanisms may become more active. However, experts are careful to emphasize that these deeper fasts are not required for fat loss. The body does not need extreme deprivation to burn fat. In many cases, pushing fasting too far can reduce consistency, increase stress, or lead to overeating later. Professionals increasingly stress that what works on paper does not always work in real life. The best approach is the one that can be sustained calmly and repeatedly. This expert perspective naturally leads to caution. Fasting changes how the body handles energy, hormones, and stress. While many healthy adults tolerate fasting well, it is not suitable for everyone. People with diabetes must be especially careful, as fasting can affect blood sugar levels in unpredictable ways. Medication timing becomes critical. Blood glucose can drop too low or rise too high depending on the individual and the type of diabetes involved. Pregnant women have increased energy and nutrient needs to support fetal development. Restricting food for long periods during pregnancy can interfere with these needs and create unnecessary risk. Individuals with a history of eating disorders may find fasting triggers unhealthy patterns or thoughts. Those with chronic medical conditions or who take medications that require food should approach fasting cautiously and under professional guidance. Another concern experts often raise is duration without preparation. Jumping from frequent eating to very long fasts can shock the system. Headaches, dizziness, weakness, and irritability may appear. These symptoms are not signs of success. They are signs of imbalance. Electrolytes may drop. Stress hormones may rise. Sleep may suffer. Experts emphasize that fasting should reduce strain, not add to it. A gradual approach allows the body to adapt smoothly. Safety comes from understanding limits, not testing them. As these points come together, a clearer picture forms of how fasting fits into fat loss. Fat burning begins when the body exhausts its easy sugar supply. This usually happens after many hours without food. For most people, this point appears after 12 hours or more. At that stage, insulin is low enough for fat to be released and used. As fasting continues toward 14 or 16 hours, fat breakdown becomes more noticeable. This is why this window appears repeatedly in expert recommendations. It represents a common zone where biology, behavior, and sustainability intersect. At the same time, experts repeatedly remind people that fasting supports fat loss rather than replaces other factors. It helps control how often insulin rises. It reduces opportunities to overeat. It simplifies eating patterns, but it does not override poor food choices or chronic overeating. Metabolism improves when the body spends more time using stored energy, but it still responds to overall intake and lifestyle. Sleep quality, stress levels, physical activity, and food quality all interact with fasting. When these elements work together, results appear more consistently. When they conflict, fasting alone cannot carry the weight. This perspective shifts fasting away from being viewed as a trick and toward being seen as a framework. It creates space for the body to do what it already knows how to do. Burn sugar when it is available. Burn fat when it is not. The role of fasting is simply to allow that natural sequence to unfold without constant interruption. Experts emphasize patience because metabolic change is not instant. Hormones respond over days and weeks, not hours. Fat loss reflects repeated cycles of low insulin and fat use, not a single long fast. Understanding this helps remove pressure. There is no perfect number that guarantees success. There is a range that works for many people. 12 hours introduces the process. 16 hours strengthens it. Longer fasts deepen it for some, but are optional. The body responds best to consistency, not extremes. This is the principle experts return to again and again. Fat loss is not about forcing the body. It is about aligning habits with biology. When eating stops long enough for sugar to run out, fat becomes available. When this happens regularly, fat loss becomes possible. Now, the real question is not about science anymore. It is about choice. Knowing what you know now, which path feels realistic for you? A gentle 12 hours that fits easily into your day, or a focused 16 hours that pushes fat burning a little further. There is no perfect answer, only the one you can repeat. Drop your choice in the comments because your decision might help someone else who is watching and wondering the same thing. If this video helped clear confusion and made fasting finally make sense, support the channel by liking this video. It tells the algorithm this content matters. Share it with someone who is struggling with fat loss and needs clarity, not hype. And if you want more simple, honest explanations about health, fasting, and metabolism, subscribe now and stay with us. More videos like this are coming, and the next one may answer the question you have been stuck on for years.